Let's just get started. For the new members, just an FYI that we need to do a roll call. So when you hear your name, if you can say I or present, so you can be counted, we'll appreciate it. Okay.
Hi,
And
everyone.
hi. So let's get started. So welcome to the March meeting of the Equity Advisory Committee. And I want to acknowledge that COVID-19 is causing us to alter our usual procedures, and we have invited residents of the region to participate in this meeting virtually. As you know, Governor Walz has declared a peacetime emergency in response to COVID-19, and the Met Council has determined it is not practical or prudent to conduct an in-person committee meeting for reasons stated in the governor's emergency executive order. Accordingly, the Met Council members will participate in this meeting by phone and other electronic means, and this Equity Advisory Committee meeting will be conducted under Minnesota Statute Section 13D.021. And before we call this meeting to order, just a few housekeeping issues of how we conduct our WebEx events. Um, we ask folks or participants to remain muted unless speaking, just to minimize background noise. If you're on the phone and the computer, please only unmute one of the devices when speaking. And it also helps us to keep track of who's saying what if you announce your name before speaking. Like I mentioned, all votes will be conducted by roll call. Um, we also ask you not to to only use the chat function to address technical difficulties and not to talk to each other. We need to um, keep track of conversations for transparency purposes. Also, use the raise hand feature if you wish to speak. If that doesn't work, type in the chat, I have a question. But again, we need you to speak up or to verbally say any questions or comments that you want to share with the group. And for your information, this meeting is being recorded and will be made available online. And two of our staff members, Irina and Greg, will be monitoring the chat, and you can reach out to her if you're having technical issues, and she can help you with that. All right. So without further ado, I'm just calling to order the meeting, the March meeting of the Equity Advisory Committee. And it's March 16, 2021. And we need to have a roll call to see if we have quorum, which currently is 10 members. So, Irina?
Thank you, Chair. So when I call your name, if you could please say here or I, that would be great. Lanice Block, Andreas Bolin, Desrelin Cole, Leah Goldstein Moses,
Here.
Francisco Gonzalez,
Here.
Nicholas Jenkins,
Here.
Chai Lee,
Here.
Michael Luceni, Edward McDonald, Nicole McGregor Ellis,
Here.
Julia Miller, T. Way,
Here.
Gabriela Olvera,
Here.
Richard Paul, Brianne Rothstein,
Here.
Sarah Rudolph,
Here.
Mohammed Sheikh, Nalima Sitate Munene,
Here.
Philip Sterner,
Here.
Anita Irvina Davis. Thank you.
Excuse me, Irina, for record purposes, I know Edward is here. I don't know if there's something wrong with his mic. He just was not able to respond for whatever reason, but
Yes, I got you, Edward.
okay.
Thank you.
So I noticed, I don't know if Councilmember Gonzalez is still here. Are you here?
Yes, I am here.
Okay, go ahead. I noticed you were freezing here and there, so go ahead.
Yeah, I might. Let me get off the camera because I'm having computer glitches issues. So bear with me for a second. All right. The first order of business is approval of the March agenda. And may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda. This is T.
Is there a second?
Nicholas Jenkins, second.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve the agenda? No discussion? Then, Irina, will you call the roll call?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this roll call I will be calling by last name only. So if you could please say aye or present. Block. Boland. Cole. Goldstein Moses.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Jenkins.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Senni. McDonald.
Aye.
McGregor Ellis.
Aye.
Miller. Way.
Aye.
Olvera.
Aye.
Paul. Rothstein.
Aye.
Rudolph.
Aye.
Sheikh. Sitati Munene.
Aye.
Sterner.
Aye.
Irvina Davis. Thank you.
Excellent. So the motion to approve the agenda is approved. So moving on to the next item of the agenda is approval of the minutes from the March 16, 2021 meeting. By the way, for the new members, all of these documents were part of the package that was emailed to you. But if you have any questions about those materials, please let us know. Again, our next order of business is approval of the minutes from the February 16th meeting. And may I have a motion to approve the minutes from the February 2021 meeting?
So moved. This is Sarah Rudolph.
Thank you, Sarah. Is there a second?
Nicholas Jenkins, second.
Excellent, Nicholas. Any discussion? Seeing none. Irina, can you do the roll call, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Block. Boland. Cole. Goldstein Moses.
Aye.
Gonzalez.
Aye.
Jenkins.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Luceni. McDonald.
Aye.
McGregor Ellis.
Aye.
Miller. Way.
Aye.
Olvera.
Aye.
Paul. Rothstein.
Aye.
Rudolph. Sheikh. Sitati Munene.
Aye.
Sterner.
Aye.
Irvina Davis. Thank you.
Irina, there's an I for Luceni.
Thank you.
Hi. Thank you, Irina. And motion carries. So the minutes from the meeting from last month are approved. So next, we always open this space for members of the public who might be present if they're invited to bring forth issues or discussing items before the EAC. Uh, do we have any members of the public present, Irina?
No, Chair, we do not.
Okay. All right, let's just move to the exciting part of today's meeting, which is welcoming the new EAC members. So we want to officially welcome our three new at-large committee members, who are Nicole Ellis McGregor, Gabriela Olvera, and Brianna Rothstein. Please join us in welcoming our new members. And the new members, I'm just going to ask you if you want to say just a few words to introduce yourselves, and maybe what drew you to apply to be part of the EAC for the Met Council. And let me just start with Nicole.
Yes, good evening. Happy to be here. What drove me to apply is really just having a voice at the table when decisions are made that impact our communities and lived experience. People with real stories and real lived experience to be able to influence social and transformative change and have thriving communities. So that is why I'm here. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you for welcoming me.
Excellent, thank you. Gabriela.
Hi, I'm Gabriela, or Gabby. You can go by either. I'm here. I was drawn to this for similar reasons. I'm originally from Chicago. I moved here 6 years ago, maybe. And I've been involved in a lot of community development, internships, and jobs. So I kind of want to see more of the demographics of the city reflected in government. So.
Thank you. And Brianne?
Hi, good evening. Brianne Rothstein, and I'm a longtime Minnesotan Minneapolis resident, and I'm a city planner by trade, so I'm really part of the system and have been professionally and as a volunteer for almost, well, a decade and a half, I guess. And so really what draws me to this committee is being able to lend my knowledge of the government and the systems, particularly the Met Council, to try to advance change. So thanks for having me. I feel honored to be part of this group.
Excellent, thank you. And just a quick editorial. I mean, here I've been at the Met Council since 2019, and I have participated in several rounds of interviews for prospective members, and I'm always amazed at the high quality of all the applicants that we get for the position. So it is always really hard to choose folks for the limited seats that we have at the EAC. But I want to say that Nicole, Gabriela, and Brianne, I think they all bring distinct experiences and skills that complement what we have from the other members, from the current members of the EAC. So I'm looking forward to working with each and every one of you as we move forward with the mission of the EAC. So welcome again. Next on the agenda is a new section that we thought that might make sense, and is for us council members to give some updates on what's been happening on the several standing committees that we are members of. And for the new EAC members, just a little bit of background. All of us council members appointed by the governor to the Met Council have functions of being members on 4 of the specific subcommittees, on several of the specific subcommittees that, or standing committees that the Met Council has. So I myself am a member of the Management and Transportation Standing Committees of the Met Council, plus I'm the co-chair of the EAC. It's on the standing committees of the Met Council that a lot of the discussion of projects and ideas and initiatives of the Met Council are first discussed and fleshed out and eventually voted before being submitted to the full council for final approval. So a lot of the work is done first by staff, then at the standing committee level, and finally at the full council. So again, a lot of the really involved work of reviewing projects, proposals, etc., is done at the standing committee level. So we thought it's important for each of us council members who are also part of the EAC to bring an update of things that might be happening at our respective standing committees, so folks have an idea of what's happening in the background before it gets to the full council. So I'm going to start, and like I said, I'm a member of both the management and the transportation standing committees, and I was just looking at the activities that we had dealt with recently, and as far as transportation is concerned, there is one particular issue that has been, in the minds of us members of the Transportation Standing Committee and also of the full council, because there has been a lot of discussion even on the press. And I'm just going to mention it briefly. If folks have any specific questions or want more detail about this item, you can contact me directly via email or phone, and I can, provide more detail. But this is the issue of the Met Council is buying additional buses to service our bus lines. And there was a discussion of whether to have electric buses, which was preferred initially due to the environmental concerns and also because it's a new technology and cleaner technology. But for a number of reasons, the council decided not to purchase additional electric buses, simply because mainly because the technology wasn't really there yet as far as being reliable enough. So we decided to go with diesel buses again as part of the new purchases that we are doing. So this has generated some discussion and some feedback from members of the community. But, like I said, I just want to mention that this is an issue that has been on the minds of the folks at transportation. And if you have any specific questions about the reasons why we're not purchasing more electric buses at this point, I can certainly provide that background information. And by the way, if you want to get all the items that are being discussed in the standing committees, the agendas plus any presentations, PowerPoints, and staff notes on any of these issues, they're all available at the Met Council site. So you can see in detail the information that we receive, for example, at the Transportation Standing Committee about this matter of the buses. If you're curious as to what was presented to us, all of that information is public and it's available on our website for your review. And again, if you have questions. I'm just going to move on to the other issue that was also in the minds of folks at the management committee that that's next committee that I'm a member of. And this is the issue of some of staff proposals for equity center allocations of our general funds. And I'm not going to go through the whole list of proposed projects, but just a little bit of background. The staff, the council has had a practice of having general funds available for kind of discretionary projects and initiatives through the years. But this year, it was decided that we should concentrate some of that discretional funding on specific staff suggested projects dealing with equity. And those initiatives run the gamut of training programs for future bus operators and maintenance folks to arts projects for our bus stops and bus facilities. Again, I'm not going to go through the whole list, and Irina is kindly posting that on I think it's the chat function, so you can see the PowerPoint with the different staff suggestions of projects where the funding would be allocated to. That wasn't an item that was voted at the management standing committee. It was just presented as an information item. So no action has been formally taken yet, but what I will suggest is if any of the members, if any of you have any suggestions, ideas, or comments about those proposed initiatives, please access the presentation that again is posted with the agenda of the management committee in our standing committee in our website. And you can see the different proposals from staff, and then you can let me know what you think. And I most definitely will take those ideas, concerns, comments at the next either council or standing committee meeting where we'll be discussing these suggestions further and then voting them for approval. I think I'm done as far as my two areas are concerned. Any questions from the folks about any of the initiatives that I mentioned, both from either transportation or management? No? Okay, you can always contact me offline via email. Let me see if Councilmember Chai Lee has any updates that you want to share with us.
Yeah, thanks, Francisco. Francisco and I are both on the management committee as well, so he covered that. This week, the CDC or Community Development Committee was canceled, and so there was no meeting this week. But the meeting prior to that, staff came to us and we had a robust discussion about how we will give out project-based vouchers in the future. So I just dropped the link into the chat of the staff report on that, and then let me pull up the actual PowerPoint here. And so, like Francisco noted, this was also an information item, so it wasn't voted on, but staff will come. They'll come back and we'll have some more discussions about how we do project-based vouchers going into the future. If there are particular questions about that as well, let me or Francisco know.
Oops. Hi, and Phil, anything to report on your standing committee?
Yes, yeah, thank you. So just to let you know, I'm on the Transportation Committee as well as Francisco is, and I'm on the Environment Committee. I'm the report for the Environment Committee, and then I'm the representative for Metropolitan Council and Clean Water Council, where we meet with all the partners around the state of that. So the one thing besides what was already reported is on the clean water. We reviewed PFAS that's in our water, and that's one that they're coming up with reports as well as the viability of the streams and lakes in there. So there's reports of that, monitoring the safety of it. And PFAS is kind of a big issue because that's in the water, and it's nothing can actually get rid of it. So it's mostly like one of those things we're trying to reduce and get our hands on it. But I can help with like water issues and those type of things. So thanks for being on the council, and look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Phil. And we will continue to do this, bring report of just a couple of the most important or salient or quote unquote hot items that are discussed in our respective standing committees. So we'll bring that up at future EAC committees again, just to keep you informed. But I will encourage all of our members to also look at the posted agendas from the different standing committees. Again, if there's an issue or a project or anything that is going to be discussed there that you have questions or that you want to more information about, you can contact the council members that are on those respective committees that are also part of the EAC, or you can contact me directly with any questions or comments, and I'll make sure that those get directed to the proper channels so we can get you a response or some feedback. Okay. And again, all of our processes and discussions are always public, so you can always access what we're doing mostly through our website. That's where everything is usually posted regularly. Now,
Francisco,
excuse
sorry,
me.
can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. Sure. I'm going to drop a link into the chat. It's the upcoming meetings of the Met Council tab that I have bookmarked on my computer, and I encourage everyone to do that too. On Friday, at the end of every week, the Met Council staff post up the agenda for the upcoming meetings and agendas for all meetings of the next week, and so you can look forward in that manner, and you can also look to that page and go down by committee to see the previous recordings and agendas of all previous meetings too. Thank you.
Thank you, Che. That was very helpful. And yeah, thank you. And somebody else had a comment? No? Okay. All right. So moving on to the next item on the agenda is that.
Excuse me, Chair. This is
Yes, go
Irina.
ahead.
It looks like Cy Jordan has her hand up.
Oh, I didn't see that. Sorry. Sai, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Cy Jordan, Director of Equal Opportunity. I just want to note for the public purpose of this meeting that those links that we're putting into the chat are links to the Metropolitan Council external website that gets you to the committees where you can have access to all the different agendas and the attached documents associated with that agenda. Arena in our office is also putting together a handy worksheet for our EAC members, so we'll have that posted with the next EAC meeting as well for public access. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And for some reason, I'm not seeing the hands, so if folks need to speak, yell at me. So I know that you want to participate. Thank you. All right. So next item on the agenda is just a recap of the presentation that was done. The EAC members presented to the council, to the full council, on our 2021 priorities and the achievements from last year, 2020. So Nalima Sitati Muneni, Sarah Rudolph, and Anita Urbina did an excellent presentation before the council, And I'm just going to ask you, to welcome Nalima, Sarah, and Anita as they give us a brief recap of their presentation before the council at the last meeting. So thank you. And I think that, Nalima, are you still here?
I am. I just confirm my mute button. Is
Okay.
Sarah and Anita, are Sarah and Anita here?
I'm
I think
here,
I saw
Nalima.
Sarah. Go ahead, Sarah.
Sure. So every year, the EAC presents before the full Metropolitan Council. Traditionally, I understand this has been an update on work performed in the previous year, and also at times has been an overview of the work that lies ahead. And so I had the opportunity and honor to be one of the presenters this year. Nalima really introduced the committee and just gave an overview of some of the basics, how we're formed, the members, and so forth. I want to highlight and thank both Sai and Arena for their assistance in pulling this together with us. Greg, is that you doing the slides?
It's me, Sarah.
Oh, okay. Hi, Arena. Is it helpful to walk through this with everyone, or does it make more sense to just share a little bit about what we presented?
I think let's just share about what we presented. I think we can share the slides afterwards. I'm assuming members got the slides, but if not, we can share it afterwards. But let's just report back.
Yep. So essentially, we just did a recap of the year that we just completed, really focusing on the strategic plan work that we did with the consultant, resulting in the formation of the 4 subcommittees. We also highlighted the new membership and the high level of interest from the committee in participating on the EAC, which is, I understand, unusual for the Met Council to have that level of demand to be part of it. And then what I found most, Anita Arena Davis went through our work plan and just highlighted some pieces from each of the subcommittees that we intend to work on. So the Met Council really received a nice summary of the year behind us, but also the year ahead of us, and the particular focus areas of each of the work groups. I will add that most interesting to me was the reaction of the Met Council members themselves. People were very, very complimentary of the group, very, very interested in supporting us, very, very kind of committed and to the work that we're really looking to advance. And so their comments ranged from whether or not it would be possible to provide a budget for the committee, whether or not the level of involvement that we could have on, let's say, environmental services. So that was not identified as one of our 4 work groups, but Peter Lindstrom, who heads that up, invited us to interface with him at any time and invited us to attend the environmental committee. Councilmember Linnea Atlas Engebretson was highly complimentary just in terms of the work that this committee has done in its incarnation, and really acknowledging all of the, I believe she said, blood, sweat, and tears that went into it. So I just wanted to share that with all of you. I think that it's not every day that we get the chance to really be in front of that body. And so I found it very encouraging to hear the level of support and interest in the EAC and what lies ahead.
Thank you, Sarah. I think Anita is not here, but yes, Anita did present on our current work plan for 2021 and what we have coming up. And just a reminder, and especially for new members, presenting on our past year is one of the things that we do as the Equity Advisory Committee, and then also present a work plan to the council of what our intended work is for the upcoming year, whatever that year may be. And as Sarah has mentioned, I want the committee members to know that the council members are very supportive, and also definitely the Equity Advisory Committee is the newest committee on the council, and committee members, both past and present, have really done a lot of work in trying to, find our footing and a way to work more efficiently. And it's been a lot of work, but it has been well worth it. And I think one of the best things too, apart from all the compliments for the council, was I think for the first time, the council really chose to say, they wanted to formally adopt the ES's work, which was great, but also really felt that our work plan was very much aligned with the council's work plan. So I think it's a great opportunity for the Equity Advisory Committee to work with the council. I think one thing I always like to say, the Equity Advisory Committee meets once every month for 2 hours. I always like to say the real work always happens outside the meeting. And so encourage, folks to reach out to council members and build those relationships. I mean, apart from just showing up at Equity Advisory Committee and finding out what is going on from the standard reporting from the various committees. But I think it's really about building the relationships and really finding out what the interests of the council members are. But also, our work is very aligned, but it was also very good as a committee also to sit down and reflect on the work that we've done. 2020 was a tough year. And so really appreciative of all of us sticking to it and sticking together, because we all know that now more than ever, the work of the Equity Advisory Committee is very important. And I know that the council realizes that and appreciates that. So thank you. I think I see Sai's hand is raised. I don't know if that's from the previous time or is your hand raised again, Sai?
My apologies, Chair. It's from previous.
Okay, that's it. Okay, I'm done on my end. Francisco, go ahead.
Excellent, thank you. So again, if the members, especially the new members, want to see that presentation, again, it's posted, and you can see the main areas that we decided to focus. I just want to stress that we're not ignoring other areas, but those are the ones that we identified as being key, at least at this point. But if you have your own suggestions, projects, or ideas to submit, please feel free to do that, because that's the whole point of the EAC, to get that community perspective, your perspective, to the Met Council, and to have the Met Council react to that and then hopefully incorporate your thoughts and the needs of the community in everything that the council does. Any questions about the presentation? No? Okay. Well, thank you, Sarah and Nalima. Let's moving on the agenda. I think the next item is Cy Jordan, who's the director of the Office of Equal Opportunity, will give a high-level overview of the council's current equity initiatives.
Thank you, Chair. Committee
Thanks.
members. This is Cy Jordan, Director of the Office of Equal Opportunity. And in our last session in doing a review for Standing Committee, we had some discussion about giving information to the former EAC members, not former, but those who have spent some time on the EAC participating already, as well as to the individual members that have come along within the last year, and then our new members to give them a head start on the orientation that will occur for them next week on how equity is set up in different groups across the council. So that will be the focus for today's review. And then Ashanti will go into a little further detail about our affirmative action work here at the council. And so just for some refresher information, the Office of Equal Opportunity, which is the liaison for the EAC, is composed of 21 staff. At this time, we have 18 staff that are our regular 1.0 full-time staff. We have one additional staff that is paid for through the project office, like Southwest Light Rail Projects. And then we have 2 extended temporary positions that we're hiring for. So even out of those 21 staff, we currently have 8 vacancies. We're in the process of going through the selection interview phase for 2 of those positions. For those 2 temporary extended, we'll be posting our investigation resolution supervisor position this week. And then we also have openings for investigation specialist, enterprise-wide senior manager that will continue to support this work of the EAC once they're on board, in addition to an equity specialist position. We're also starting a new unit that's going to be engaged around development initially for small business inclusion, and then we'll have an engagement specialist that will support that work. And so in addition to the EAC, the Office of Equal Opportunity is also the liaison for the DBE and Workforce Advisory Committee across the council, which is specific to the Southwest Light Rail Project. And then we are a liaison to the Transportation Accessibility Advisory Committee, which is better known as TAC here at the council. In addition to the work in our office, which is responsible for the coordination of equity enterprise-wide, there are equity change teams within the individual divisions as well. And so another refresher is that the council is divided into 5 divisions. So we have regional administration, and that's where the Office of Equal Opportunities reports to as a support service office across the council, similar to like our human resources, which is council-wide, as well as our procurement work, which is council-wide. All of those departments reside in regional administration. Then we have Metro Transit, which many are familiar with. We have environmental services, community development, and Metropolitan Transportation Services. Each of those divisions has an equity change team. Those equity change teams are designated by the division leads, which are the general managers or the directors of those divisions. And those equity change teams have their own individual work plans that are associated with the work of that division. The regional administration also has an equity change team, and so we are getting started again after a hiatus, and we support the 4 divisions as well. The work of the regional administration equity change team is starting to form right now, and they have 3 areas that they're beginning with, one of which is the dashboard. And that dashboard is going to produce information about equity across the council, whether it be from the small business data that we already collect or our own workforce data that we are collecting and disaggregating. The second area of initial focus is going to be on virtual presence and communication of equity across the council. And I know that is also of particular interest to the EAC as well. And then the equity policy, we're going to use these groups for one of our areas of engagement around updating the council-wide equity policy. That will also be brought forward to the EAC for your input and feedback as well. And if you recall from those who've been around for a while, EAC was very much involved in preparing and drafting that equity policy for approval in 2018. Any questions so far? And so I'll continue on as we move through. We also have our employee resource groups, and so they've been operating pretty informal at the council for some time. For example, we have our AWT, Advancing Women in Transit, and we put together a formalized process. Also, we associated some funding that those groups are going to be able to use as well. And so in doing that, The AWT is going to be formalizing as a employee resource group. We have a LGBTQ that will be formalizing as an employee resource group. And then we have some other suggestions as well. So separate from the equity change teams, the employee resource groups can be council-wide versus working on divisional work plans. We have our equity policy, which I have already mentioned, and then we have the equity strategy and framework. And so with the equity strategy and framework, if you'll recall, we have three components of that, one of which is workforce equity, the other is community engagement, and then investments in procurement. In addition to the equity strategy and framework, which is in alignment with many of the areas that you have a focus on here in the EAC when it comes to the operations of the council around investment and procurement, also around workforce equity, and then those components of community engagement that transcend across any of the areas of transportation, affordable housing. Our council strategic plan has been developed and has been presented to the governor's office as of 2020, or actually as of 2019. We did an update in 2020, but one of the things that the council members took as a positive is that the areas of their strategic plan are also in alignment with the equity advisory committees for priority areas. And so with the council strategic plan, there is transportation as a focus. They have several objectives that are associated with that. They have reducing racial disparities, housing, and sustainability. Those are the four priority areas of the council strategic plan. We did our first quarterly update to the governor in the end of January, and will continue on throughout this year. That document has also been presented to EAC as a handout, but if you need any of these documents, we're certainly willing to make sure that you get a new copy of them as well. One of the things that was mentioned that the council members are focusing on are those equity funds that Councilmember Gonzalez stated to you today. There's about 3.9 million plus in general funds that are going to be associated with the equity distribution for 2021. And then we have the racial equity training plan that's in progress at the council. That's been ongoing since early 2020, and we have different phases that will continue through 2022. We've started with the leadership group, so the council members, the executive leadership, and also our managers and supervisors have all went through the IDI training and the ICS training. So the IDI for the individual development inventory, intercultural development inventory, and the ICS for the intercultural competence survey. We wanted to make sure that as we were starting the phases for upper management of our organization, that we also had opportunity for staff to continue and get involved in training electronically and through various formats across the council. So we have our unconscious bias that is available, and all staff are expected to complete that training. That is happening at this time until we move into our leadership forum, which is our next dedicated training for our managers and supervisors. That focus is also going to be on racial equity. We have always had that training for our managers and supervisors, except we're building in this foundation before they get to their leadership forum this year. From there, we'll continue on with baseline training of staff across the council. And you'll be able to hear more about that as we continue to get engaged with our staff on that training. And I'd like to have staff come to you and actually do a full presentation on the racial equity strategy and training plan that's happening across the council. There will be staff in HR LOD that will be involved in doing that presentation to you. With that, that's a quick update and overview of the various ways in which equity is progressing across the council in terms of which groups are associated, how staff are involved in it, whether it's through their former role or through voluntary roles that they have within the council. With that, I'll open it up again for any questions or thoughts or feedback.
I just want to say, so I thank you very much for that overview. And from the council members' perspective, at least my own perspective, is that there is legitimate interest from the council to move forward on equity issues. And Chair Zelli has been upfront about indicating that the Met Council needs to do better. And part of recognizing that is supported initiatives just like the ones that Sai just enumerated. So this is a good time for the EAC and for community input because the council is indeed moving forward with implementing some long needed measures to bring equity to all the work that the council does. So again, thank you, Sai. And next, we think we have the council-wide affirmative action plan that was recently approved by the state of Minnesota. And I think that Ashanti Payne, who's the assistant director of the Office of Equal Opportunity, will give us a brief update on the affirmative action plan.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. Ashanti Payne, Assistant Director for the Office of Equal Opportunity at the Council. Thank you for having me to discuss the Council's state affirmative action plan, which covers years 2020 through 2022. And one of the things that I found out in coming to the Council that I did not know prior is that the council does not submit our affirmative action plan to the Department of Human Rights. So that part of the human rights statute is not applicable to us. However, we do submit ours to Minnesota Management and Budget for approval. And we received final approval of that plan on February 11th. One of the other things that was maybe a surprise to some of our council members as well is that it does not require council approval. However, the affirmative action plan must be signed by 3 individuals at the council, our regional administrator, which currently is Mary Bogey, and then also the council's affirmative action officer, who is Cy Jordan, and then the council's director of HR, who is Marcy Simon. So of course, some of you may know the purpose of our affirmative action plan is really to assure that internally that the positions of all executive branch of the civil service are equally accessible to all qualified persons, and really to address and eliminate underutilization of qualified members of protected groups. Again, some of the key roles, and I don't want to miss out in telling you that really to ensure that this plan is not something that just sits on the shelf and until the next 2-year period comes up. This is definitely a partnership and collaboration with some key partners internally at the council. Most notably, I would mention is our HR department. And we are working together both on our strategies and in how we communicate progress and hold the agency accountable for the outcomes. There's really 6 key components to the plan. There's an executive summary, which really gives you the area where you may have underutilization. Then our responsibility to communicate the plan and how we're going to make the plan available both internally for employees at the council as well as externally to the public. It also is comprised of a utilization and availability analysis, which really we use American Community Survey and census data, and we've defined our recruitment area as the metropolitan, 7-county metropolitan area, and it identifies individuals that are available in the workplace. In the labor force, and that is one of the factors that we utilize to establish our availability percent. The other factor is our historic patterns in terms of the rate at which we fill positions internally, either through promotions, transfers, but those internal processes, and they're weighted to arrive at our availability analysis. The other components that we look at as part of the affirmative action plan, of course, are the personnel actions, which include hires, rehires, promotions, and separations. That is to make sure that any of those personnel related activities do not have a disparate impact on protected groups, and to ensure that those functions are operating in an equitable manner for all council employees or applicants. So our recent plan, or our 2020 or 2022 plan, we identified that we do have underutilization, and we have underutilization for women across the board in all of the job categories. And then there's underutilization for each protected class group relative to the skilled craft classification. And where you have underutilization, or where that's identified, of course, we have to establish goals and timetables for addressing that underutilization, and also strategies and initiatives that will help us get to where we expect to be and we should be. And the goals percentage is based on, again, that availability that is derived from the census data, and for those that exist in the labor force. One thing I will mention in terms of the affirmative action plan is that the plan itself does not disaggregate the data for persons of color. However, the council does recognize that this disaggregated data is important to track, understand, and be transparent about if we are to achieve equity in our workforce. We feel that we can't get to equity if we are not aware of and tracking our progress in a disaggregated fashion. We also have taken the step to make available the information at a disaggregated level to all of our divisions. So I mentioned the 5 divisions that make up the council. So we have already begun meeting with those divisions and sharing this data, and having those and starting those conversations that'll get us to where we need to, and developing strategies to address our underutilization that has been identified. That's also important based on the way that we are made up. We are council-wide over 4,000 employees, a little over 4,000. However, 3,000 of those employees reside in one division, which is Metro Transit. So that division heavily drives our numbers and our results. So again, it's important to take a look at the information and the data at a more granular level, and we are definitely doing that. The other thing I will say is that we will, I anticipate that we will have our plan posted and made available to the public by the end of this week. The reason why it has taken us to this point, mainly after we got a final approval, is getting the document, making it accessible. We did not have any problems with accessibility when it was in Word, but we ran into some problems converting it to PDF that we have resolved. So we will be posting it this week, and then we will be holding information sessions relative to information sessions and communication sessions to make employees at the council not only aware of it, but making sure that they understand their role in terms of advancing workforce equity in the council. And again, so that it is not just something that we can check the box. It sits on the shelf until the next 2 years when we have to complete it again. We have also made the commitment relative to reporting out on progress quarterly towards our affirmative action plan results, goals, objectives, strategies, which ones are working, which ones have yielded results, and which ones have offered us the opportunity to adjust and shift our course. We will be reporting not only to the divisions, but at the council level, and we also welcome the opportunity to come back to this committee and share that same information. I would also like to mention that it says our affirmative action plan, what we're doing with it and how we're addressing any underutilization has been identified as a focus for one of your subcommittees, council operations. So I hope I'm not offending Sarah and Leah and Edward and Michael and Andres by saying if you want to be a part of that subcommittee, please reach out to one of those individuals. I'm sure they would love to have you on that committee. And that is where we will be really digging into it in in much more detail, and really getting at some of those strategies. And I will really appreciate the input, perspective that the committee can provide. So with that, I will stop and leave room for any questions.
Thank you, Ashanti. Sai, anything else that you would like to add?
I'd just like to add on to what Ashanti has already stated. And so as we take a look at our affirmative action work, or action plan, we do that with the council as a whole, but we've really taken the time in the last year to dig down at the divisional level. So while as a council, we don't have underutilization as that fits within those categories, within each category across our organization. What we have always committed to as an organization is that our workplace should reflect the region that we serve. And to have that happen, we really need to take a look at each of those divisional levels. So separate out Metro Transit, the two categories of bus operators and non-bus operators, and really take a look in detail at all of those areas around hiring, separation, promotion, and then a few other categories as well. And as we do that work at the divisional level, we'll continue to work with the not only the division leaders, but their equity change teams around their own objectives and goals for their divisions as well. And then we're also doing that breakout for our applicant status as well. And HR will be leading that work. So more to come, and then you'll be working on that within your subgroup as we work with them on what's presented to the full EAC. You'll hear more from us. Any immediate thoughts or input is welcome. It looks like Sarah has a question.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Sai and Ashanti. Really appreciate the great amount of work that has gone into preparing that affirmative action plan. I am, I recognize that there's a lot of work to be done just in terms of looking deeper at the data and really what those numbers look like and having a better understanding of that at a more detailed level. I'm wondering, and it may be too early, but if there's been any conversation about how to connect these trainings that you've mentioned, Sai, around like bias training or the trainings that the leadership have been through with the IDI and the ICS with really what it means to have a culture of inclusion. And so recognizing like you can hire people all day long of whatever collection of qualities or characteristics or identities, but if it's not a positive experience for them at work, then they're not going to stay there. And so I'm not assuming anything about the Met Council itself. I am familiar with the demographic reports of the Twin Cities metropolitan area in general, and it really doesn't look good, as I'm sure you know, for employees of color in particular. And so I'm just wondering, in addition to the strategies that you mentioned for how to address like promotions and things like that, if there's been any conversation around the culture of the Met Council itself.
Yes, Chair, Committee Member Rudolph. Thank you for that question. Yes is the short answer. And then just to give you a little bit more insight, as I've been talking to divisions, council committees, et cetera, one of the things that I want to make sure is definitely conveyed is that all of this work that we're doing with the Affirmative Action Plan really ties back to our equity strategy and framework and those goals that we have around there and making the council an employer of choice in an environment that is conducive for all employees to succeed and contribute their best. So I actually have a slide in my presentation that covers that. The other part of that is, and I didn't mention this while I was talking, is one of the key things that we've identified and that the data is telling us is that retention has to be a focus of any of our efforts. Because like you said, Sarah, you can hire people, but if they are not staying, we know that women and people of color are leaving our agency at a rate higher than their representation in the agency. So that has to be a focus. Otherwise, we're not going to be successful in terms of what we're trying to do. The other thing I want to mention, especially since she is here and present, I was remiss for not mentioning Arena Anderson and her role that she played in helping get this plan to where it's at, getting it approved, and most importantly, all of the work she put into making sure that the document is accessible.
And so, council member, chair and council member, excuse me, not council member, committee member, it's been a long day, Rudolph. And so, in addition to that, we recognize that setting for our goals and our strategies around corrective action under the Affirmative Action Plan is not the same as being intentional in creating workforce equity. So within those discussions we're having at the council, we're definitely gearing them towards workforce equity versus just being responsive to the Affirmative Action Plan. So yes, there is certainly a lot of work underway, and it is connecting to the training that we're doing with our managers and supervisors so that not one department or office is seen as engaging around diversity, inclusion, or being responsive to compliance issues, but that there's a deeper understanding and that there's some development of managers and supervisors themselves around this work and continued engagement as we move forward in our racial equity training plan. And I believe Councilmember Sterner has his hand up, and then Edward has his hand up as well.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, I just had kind of questions about the demographics. Is all the statistics self-reporting, or on the applications of that, or is this, or are there other checks on some of the attributes when people are applying?
Yes, Chair, Committee Member Sterner, Council Member Sterner. Um, it is to some extent self-reporting, and especially when you are talking about persons who have identified or self-identified as having a disability, one or more disabilities. So we do realize that there are individuals who choose not to disclose their disability, or in some cases, their ethnicity.
And then the other question I had, a different one, was with women and the retention of the workforce, how much of that is attributed to like childbearing type issues, staying home with the children, for example, versus, the Metropolitan Council not being a conducive environment for the women?
That is, Chair and Council Member Sterner, I think that's an excellent question that I don't have that answer here for you today. I think some of that information and data that we are talking about and will have access to will be part of our exit survey information that we're reviewing with HR, and then also hoping to uncover some of that information in terms of implementing a strategy in what we're calling stay interviews, or getting information such as that prior to people leaving the council, because sometimes when they're leaving, that it's too late at that point. So I don't have that exact answer here for you today, but that's the kind of information, and then developing strategies and remedies to address that is part of is part of the ongoing work that we're doing with HR.
All right, thank you very much for your work. Appreciate your answers.
Any other questions or comments?
It looks like, Edward, you have your hand up.
Yes,
and then
Edward.
Leah.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Mr. Chair, EO staff, just a one comment and then a couple questions. The comment is that that the chart that you put together in the affirmative action plan that identify underutilization of protected group members, it almost seems like it's an affront to equity itself when the chart can identify underutilization in a disaggregated way for two protected group members, women and disabled. But then it omits the constructs that people of color have to live by, and somehow those have to be discussed in the back room and not made as transparent as all the other protected group members. Guess that's just my commentary. And as a protected group member, I just seem like, wow, that's so unfair to me that you can't publicly disclose that I'm overutilized or underutilized for whatever benefit or problem that cause you, and other members can. So it just seemed to be strange that Equal Opportunity and Equity Advisory Committee can live with that kind of existence, that kind of lived experience, that lack of transparency, that lack of purposefulness in achieving equity without taking that remedial step in terms of drafting an affirmative action plan that then builds your strategy for achieving equity. So that's my commentary on that. You guys are doing a good job of disclosing and getting people organized internally. I also like to know if that chart provides utilization, underutilization based on temporary positions that the Met Council may have. That's a question.
Chairs and Committee Member McDonald. So I want to make sure I understand the question. Is there underutilization, or does the chart identify underutilization for temporary positions?
Yes, that's my question. Does the chart include full-time and temporary or part-time positions within the Met Council? Does it disaggregate that from whatever you're reporting?
No, it does not. The plan is, I mean, it includes those positions, but it does not separate out temporary positions from as a separate category. The affirmative action plan is organized around what they call EEO job categories, and it's just a grouping of like or similar positions that are existed. So they're organized around officials and administrators, professionals, technicians, protective services, sworn and non-sworn, paraprofessionals, office and clericals, skilled craft, and service maintenance.
No temporary positions in any of those job categories.
Yes, the temporary positions would be included. However, we did have some conversation internally when we have in one of our meetings with HR in terms of if we should include that data in our separation analysis, because right now it currently is. So even when that temporary position ends, it is, but we've had some discussion on whether we should, for our internal purposes, maintain that data.
So let me just paint a scenario, even though this may not be the case with the Met Council. So if you're not disaggregating that information and you're showing no underutilization, let's say in a skill area, and it shows that there's no underutilization of, let's say, Latino or Latinx people, we would have no way of knowing if those were all just temporary positions where they came in a couple of weeks and got documented inside of that job category, but they don't exist on a full-time basis where there are full-time opportunities. Temporary positions give appointing authorities a lot of discretion. And when you don't disaggregate information, it allows for those who are not advocates of equity, regardless of what kind of diversity training or unconscious bias they go through. They then use the sophistication of those kind of systems to basically make sure that equity at all levels are not being adhered to. So to not disaggregate protected group people, one, all of them, only some of them seems to not be equitable to me. And then secondly, to not disaggregate temporary part-time positions from full-time positions also seem to give those who don't want to achieve that cover to not do that. Again, that's an editorial and maybe something that our subcommittee can look at a little bit closer in this. And I'm not sure why the rules would say that if you do your availability analysis by each of the protected group members, why you wouldn't be reporting underutilization or utilization by each of the protected groups. And then further disaggregate full-time, part-time, temporary positions. In fact, I think the statute do say that you have to do that, but I thought I heard you say some earlier that you didn't have to adhere to the affirmative action program for the state. But we can talk about that in sub-area. The last question I want is that I can see the thrust with all of this internally, and I can imagine that it's, you know, it's tough inside there and trying to change cultures, and when there are people who have hate in their hearts that have nestled themselves in the protection of unions and civil service rules and want to just do harm. So I really appreciate you guys providing that administrative leadership on this. But I wanted to ask what you've done so far, which sounds very good to me, and it's really thrusting in the right direction. Can you point to one or two things that you think are significant in terms of Metropolitan Council influenced equity in the marketplace?
Chairs, Committee Member McDonald, one of the things that I've already mentioned is retention. We've got to be able to create an environment and create strategies relative to making this a place that people want to stay, and understanding why people of color and women are leaving our agency at a rate higher than their representation. The other thing that I would point to or mention or focus is our recruitment and hiring process, to really understand where are people falling out of the process or not advancing, and understanding if there are barriers that exist for protected groups, that we have strategies in effective ways to deal with that. So those would be my two focus areas. I don't know, I'll let Sai chime in if she wants to add anything.
Chair,
really too good.
Yeah, go ahead, Saranthi.
Chair, committee members, I was going to say those are some of the points you made are very good, and that's why we have disaggregated at the divisional level. And then as we continue on in our engagement with those individual division leads and their staff, we'll be having deeper conversations that pertain to the particular division. So for example, in Metro Transit, when it comes to bus operators or part-time, it may be ideal for them to have critical discussions about segregating that or disaggregating that data a little further around those areas. It may not be as relevant, for example, for community development. And I'm just making some comparisons here without any real data that I'm sharing with you around those two. So as the divisions have their actual data, then they have a need that's different in each of their departments as well. And they'll be having those conversations, and we'll be going further into the data and asking and answering just those kind of questions that have been presented here today.
Thank you, Sai. And just looking at raised hands, I see that Leah, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
I have two questions that are a little bit related. The first is related to the ERGs. What's the general philosophy at the council around those ERGs? Are they there primarily to be a safe space for employees to talk and share issues and be supportive of each other? Are they intended to raise issues up to HR or to those equity action teams for action? Are they intended to train other employees at the Met Council around issues related to their protected group, or what's the philosophy around ERGs?
Chair, committee members, it could be all or subgroups of what you mentioned. And so the employee resource groups are designed so that the employee resource group itself will set its own plan of action for what it thinks is relevant and significant to the members of that group. And it could either be based upon a certain demographic or a certain theme or concept. And so as they make a request to form as an employee resource group, then they will make a determination of what their work plan is, and it would be reviewed by the council. And the only review that would be by the council would be through our Office of Equal Opportunity. There are some very narrow limitations in terms of not being used for any political kind of a group or education and training. But other than that, they really have broad range to decide what their needs are. So it could be anywhere from networking, it could be bringing in educational speakers around a particular topic or area of focus or training that they believe that their group needs. So there's a broad range of how those groups can operate across the council.
And Sai, before you move on, can you just give one or two examples of those groups so folks understand what we're talking about?
And so we have the LGBTQ group that is in the process of forming. We have, again, we use the AWT, which has been around the council and Metro Transit for quite a long time, as a good example of how an employee resource group could function. And they'll be looking at transforming into a formal ERG. There's other groups that are discussing whether or not they want to form specific to engineering and facilities and some of the needs that they have with particular groups within their department. So it's open to our employees to determine what their needs are and to present those.
Okay.
So then the second part of my question was for those ERGs, I was imagining they might be a good source of information and insight related to retention. As an example, Councilmember Sterner earlier asked if caregiving responsibilities might have something to do with the reason women were leaving the workforce. I would offer that those ERGs could be really creative and helpful sources of information about, in addition to the exit interviews, about what sorts of benefits or work structures or barriers are getting in the way of people staying at the council, and maybe give some creative ideas about things like caregiver supports or flexible work schedules, or things that ultimately would benefit all employees, but might be helpfully coming from the perspective of one of those ERGs. So anyway, that was a follow-up comment, not really a question, but thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments at this point? No. Okay. Thank you very much for this good discussion. Appreciate it. Let's just move on to the next item of the agenda, and this is Cy Jordan again, Director of OEO, giving a EAC liaison update. Anything that we haven't covered that you need to cover now, Asai?
Thank you, Chair, committee members. I think that the council members did a great job in their update, and this item was put onto the agenda before we had that addition, I think that we can have a discussion of whether or not the OEO liaison update could probably reduce to just 5 minutes or so if we have any particular OEO department updates that we want to share. But as we move forward with the changes to your agenda where council members will report on standing committee activity, and then we'll also make space on this agenda for the subcommittees of the EAC to be doing some updates and bring information forward, there may be less of a need for OEO to cover all of those areas of function for the EAC. But what I'll do for today is open it up to any questions that you may have about activity around the council that you would like to get a quick update on.
So this is Nalima. So thank you so much, Sai and Ashanti, for your presentations. I think today's meeting was very helpful, and especially, I mean, it was beneficial also for a long time ESC members, and I think hopefully it was also very beneficial for the incoming new members as equity work continues to advance, in the council. And it's not really a question, probably more of a comment. I mean, I think has been demonstrated in today's presentations from staff, and really appreciate just the amount of information. I think what would be also helpful for committee members going forward is also, I mean, we know we have the equity change teams, and etc. I think having been on the committee long enough, what is really vital for the committee, even as we think about, what are the updates the OEO liaison could give, is really knowing what are those points of, intersection that would be helpful for the committees to, to get for the committee members to get in as whatever as the equity work is progressing, whether it is within the equity change teams or the equity plan, and also as the equity policy moves forward. I think staff has the insight, and the council is a massive institution, so just something for staff to think about as we're thinking about the future updates for the committee. I still think staff updates will be helpful, and especially as I think now we have a clearer picture about what the different equity pieces in the council are that exist in the council. Just knowing and having that insight about what are the points of intersection that the committee can get in, so that we're moving efficiently with the limited bandwidth that we have.
Thank you. Thank you, Nalima. Any additional comments or questions before we move on? Okay. So let's move on to the last item of the agenda, and I think we are even a little bit early. So thank you for trying to keep up with the time allotments that we have. It really helps so we can have good discussions. I have a couple of announcements to make. First is the standing committee of the EAC is continuing to meet virtually and via WebEx. Our next standing committee meeting is on Tuesday, March 26th from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. And participation of the EAC members is critical. Participation in the standing committee is critical because that's where we set the agenda, discuss what things to bring before the full EAC, questions to pose for staff, the nuts and bolts of the operation of the EAC are kind of discussed there. So we definitely want everybody to participate at that standing committee session because a lot of the work of the EAC, like Nalima said, it's done with outside of the regularly scheduled meetings like this one today. So everybody's cordially invited, and hopefully we can have you at the next meeting on the 26th. The other
Chair?
yes, go ahead.
This is Cy Jordan. Just one point of assistance. The next standing committee is Tuesday at 5:30 of March 23rd. And so
23rd.
standing committees are the fourth Thursday of each month from 5:30 to 6:30, following the EAC meetings, which are on the third Thursday.
Thank you. My apologies for the wrong date. It's Tuesday, March 23rd.
And I apologize again because I confused you further. I'm sorry, Tuesday, March 23rd, the fourth Tuesdays of each month are the standing committees, and the third Tuesdays are the EAC meetings. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And the last announcement that I have is, as you might be aware, that our co-chair Nelima Sitate Munene is stepping back as co-chair, but she will continue to serve as a regular member. So we had requested, or we had announced that we would be looking for a new co-chair, and several current EAC members expressed interest in stepping into this very important position. It was tough for us to make a selection of the folks that among the folks that applied, but upon discussion of all the candidates, we selected. We are recommending that Leah Goldstein Moses should be the new co-chair, and we will be forwarding her name to the council chair, Sally, for him to review and then adopt this and make the formal appointment at the next Met Council meeting, which I believe is on March 24th. So, first of all, thank you for all the folks that express an interest to serve in this position, which is an additional time and work committee, an additional commitment more than just being a regular member. And I also want to thank Leah for her work so far in the EAC. She's been a member for many years. I think almost since the beginning of the creation of the EAC. So we are all looking forward working with her and moving forward. And Nelima, thank you again for all your work through the years. And again, you've been also one of the original members of the EAC, and your work has kept this committee alive and been an important part of the work of the Met Council. So thank you to both of you, and looking forward to work with Leah. Any last comments, questions before we adjourn?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just one.
Yeah, Edward, go ahead.
Last minute revelation that just kind of dawned on me, and this is for the EO staff. The retention matter and temporary employees. If there's high turnover, we should just explore if there's a correlation between them coming in as temporary employees or not of the issues. But I would explore some kind of analysis around that. That's my last comment.
All right. Thank you, Edward, for that. All right. If there isn't anything else, any additional comments or questions, then I want to thank you for your participation tonight. Again, I want to welcome the new members. Hopefully we haven't scared you away and you will come at the next meeting too. So we look forward to continue working with all of you and welcoming Leah to the position of co-chair from now on. So thank you very much, and let's keep up the good work. Appreciate it. Have a good night, everybody.